Hello, I'm Jessie, and earlier this year I had good intentions of documenting more of what I make on YouTube in video form, and then I posted one video and fell off the face of YouTube for the rest of the year. So last week I was reflecting on the year and I was looking at my Ravelry page and I realized that I finished a good number of objects this year, and I thought I could take the opportunity to show you them and chat a little bit about the process and the wearability and other factors of some things that I knit this year. Here we are. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I think I may have said that, and my name is Jessie. So okay, so first thing, I'm gonna roughly go in order based on my Ravelry, and that's also what's keeping me accountable to what did I actually finish this year, and also the important reflection of what am I wearing, what am I not wearing, and why, how satisfied am I with the finished objects, are there things I should go back and fix, all of that stuff. So the first thing that I finished in January of 2025 was a cozy classic raglan, and I think this is the regular one, not the light, though I have made the light before. This is a pattern by Jessie Maed, and I used Purl Soho's Good wool, which is like in between a sport and a light DK, I think. And I found this yarn to be extremely fun to work with. It has a nice heathered, I can't tell if you can tell that, but it has a really pretty like textured heathered nature to it. It's a little bit like gray pink, and this I knit with almost like zero positive ease. I think it's 43 or 44 inches around, and it's really a perfect raglan, and I wear it a lot. It goes with everything. It kind of sits really nicely as a cropped sweater, and so being both a neutral color and being a cropped fit, it gets a lot of wear, and you can tell the wool has a little bit of pilling, especially in the underarm area, which is pretty common, but all in all I think it's held its shape extremely well since finishing it in January, and it's a good weight for my climate, so I do find that it gets a good bit of wear, both casually on a weeknight or a weekend, but also potentially also at work. I do wear it at work. So that's the cozy classic raglan. And that was the first thing that I finished this year. So I started it last year. And so early in the year, I tend to have this pattern where I will try to finish some things, which I'm currently in that phase right now of knocking a few things off of my list. But that leads me to my next finished object of 2025, which I think I finished in, gosh, also maybe late January, early February. So I finished these back to back. But I'm a little embarrassed to admit that I started this sweater in 2023 or even 2022. I think. It's a fingering weight sweater. This is the Sunset Highway sweater by Boyland Knitworks, Caitlin Hunter. And I loved, so this is one of the sweaters that came out 2017, I want to say, and I was crocheting at the time, and I saw the sweater and I was like, oh, I need to start knitting, and I need to knit this sweater. And then once I started knitting sweaters, I've owned this pattern like since I started knitting, and just never made it. And I'm kind of glad I waited, because it let me figure out what I like about the pattern. Caitlin Hunter has a tendency to have really like wide, kind of drapey open necks and sort of oversized fits. And now I know enough about what I like to wear to be able to make the modifications to this pattern that I think really work for me. So for example, the original pattern actually has a Colorwork charting for the sleeves as well. And I just knew that like this was already so bold and eye-catching that I didn't know if I would wear this as much if it had the colorwork on the sleeves as well. I just didn't know if it would sort of turn it into like that sweater. I don't know if that makes sense. But I really like the way that this turned out. I think that the yoke is really incredibly graphic and beautiful, and that's what I finished back in 2022. And then of course, because the body was just knitting straight in stockinette and then sleeves with many, many inches of ribbing, it just sat languishing for a long time. So finally finished that this year. This one's also nice. It's pretty oversized. I can't remember what size I knit, but probably a 4. I think I knit a 4 in Caitlin Hunter Patterns. And I ended up making the sleeves, I think, have almost no decreases until you get to the ribbing, and you decrease right before the ribbing. I also did a 3 needle bind off, excuse me, not a 3 needle bind off, a tubular bind off on this cuff, but in true Jessie fashion, not on this cuff. And I think you can really tell the difference. This one's so neat and beautiful, and this one's a little bit scraggly. And so I should go back and just unpick this and redo one little cuff on the sweater, because this one is really quite beautiful. And so I love wearing this. I think I tend to wear this mostly around the house, and it's very lightweight and very cozy. But I don't think I've worn it outside of the house that many times, just because it's so bold and bright. Then again, I'm trying to do better at actually wearing things like this that I knit, and when I have worn it out, I think I have gotten compliments on it. So one person, shout out to Gabby, even spotted me at a concert because she said, there's someone at this concert that is wearing a Sunset Highway sweater and I think looks like you. And it in fact was me, and I was there in the crowd sweating in my Sunset Highway. So that's the second thing I made this year. And then my computer has gone dim, so I'm gonna go off the cuff for what I think was the next item on my finished object list this year. We went to Tucson in early February of 2025, and I know I brought these 2 things, which means they were done by the time we went to Tucson. First up is my framed cowl. So this is a pattern by Andrea Mowry, Drea Renee Knits, and it is the same colorwork chart as her framed sweater, which is a worsted weight sweater, and I live in the South, so was probably never gonna knit a colorwork worsted weight sweater. But the cowl was perfect because, of course, as you know, even if you wanna hold your floats, if they're all tucked into this cowl, because it's knit in a big tube, and then you stitch it together at the very end, which I think you can barely tell. So this is just a lovely cowl. The colorwork was really fun. This is made in leftovers that I already had. I used these same 2 yarns in Shift Again, the Shifty Cardigan, also by Andrea Mowry, and I really liked this. This is dyed in the wool, or excuse me, this is Spin Cycle Nocturne in their brown sugar colorway, and it's paired with the Fiber Company Amble in a really pretty gray. I'll put all information about all of these yarns will be in the show notes, but I really like this combo, and of course these colors go with so much of what I wear already. This gets a ton of wear. I think that cowls are more wearable than a lot of shawls, so this was a good knit that I do wear quite a lot, and it's just really so easy to style, and the colorwork was really, really fun. So this is also, this brown sugar yarn sort of bleeds a good bit, or it did for me when blocking, but fortunately it kind of just soaks into the gray in a nice way that I think really works together. And so I would just be careful if you were using this yarn with like a more high contrast main color. So loved this. Wore it in the desert in February at night. It was delightful. I also brought this hat, which is the Sporty photographer hat by Lavanya Patricella, if I'm probably butchering her name. And this hat, I knit the photographer hat, which is a pattern of hers many, many years ago with my sister-in-law. It was a free pattern and she found it. And my photographer hat, the original I think is in worsted weight, is one of my most worn hats. I really, really love it. And so I had one skein of this sport weight. I think this is Quince & Co. In like their sport base. It's really, really nice, like very breathable, not too woolly, but 100% wool. And I had this coral color and I had bought it, you know, to go with something else, like a one-off. I bought it with like 2 other colors. And I just find that this is a really wearable hat in this color. It goes with so much stuff. It almost reads as a neutral for me. I knit it. I would have knitted a little bit longer to kind of cover this second. You can see the brim doesn't quite go up all the way on the other part of the brim. I like a folded brim, but I was running out of yarn. So that is the reason that this is literally one skein. And I don't really mind that very much. And I wear this hat all the time. So, I knit also a black hat. I think just the everyday ribbed hat from Purl Soho, and it's black and this is pink, and they're my 2 most worn hats. So love that one. The next thing that I finished, this is a Sophie shawl or Sophie scarf. I think it's a shawl because it's bigger. So it has that sort of classic biggest in the middle here and then goes out on either side. This is a pattern where you start on the tiny end, increase all the way till you get halfway through the yarn you have, and then you decrease this way. And it has the cute little I-cord edging, very popular pattern by Petite knit. I knit this just using some Suri silk that I had in my stash. I had bought it, I think, in a sale for like a small business that was sort of trying to, I think, stay in business in the pandemic. And so I had ordered some of this from them and just had 2 skeins of it and used both skeins in this project. So this is really nice because it's just super, super low key and it's very easy to wear. It's very fluffy because it's Suri. So there's a lot of really nice texture in this. The pattern is so simple and it just wraps around many, many times if you want to wrap it around many times. And so this is just a fluffy hug. We're going to be going to Boston in January of 2026. And I imagine that I'll bring this one because it's pretty lightweight, squishes up very small, but is also bringing the warmth, and I assume I'll need the warmth for Boston in January. The next item that I finished is some socks, and I have a very dramatic relationship with socks. I love the idea of socks, and I don't really enjoy knitting them, and I need to figure out how to get through that. There's 2 main problems I have with socks, and the first one is, for some reason, I just get kind of bored, which is so silly because it's so much of a smaller project than sweaters. But I think part of the way to get around that is possibly to give myself like something in the sock that keeps me engaged. So whether that is some sort of little stitch or like a rib pattern or a little cable pattern, or in this case, the Colorwork yoke, or Colorwork cuff. I finished these cuffs very, very quickly and then stagnated on the stockinette part. So it's one of those ironic things where maybe I need a more complicated sock and maybe that would get me excited. But the second problem I have with socks is my gauge. I'm such a loose knitter that I think I knit these on ones, US 1, and the problem is I don't love knitting any smaller than US 1s. When I knit socks on zeros, I never finish them. I find them to be tedious. There's no progress. But on these ones, my stitches are so open, and they don't look as satisfying as other people's stitches do. And also, like, this is the actual size of my foot. Like, I have to say, like, I always think, oh my gosh, these socks look enormous, but this is the size of my foot. I think these should be negative ease and they're just the size of my foot. But they're already the like adult small, or the size, you know, I make already to accommodate for my gauge. I make a smaller size, and this has actually come back to bite me because getting the colorwork over my heel is a little bit tricky. And I even did the extreme I should just say, this is a pattern by Summer Lee Knits. I did her Colorwork cuff, I bought her Colorwork cuff club the first year, and I have all of the lovely and delightful Colorwork motifs from that first year of patterns, including a little set of ghosts, which go around the cuff for last year's October. I knit those for myself this year, and I gifted them, so I don't have I'll try to put a photo up here, but I love them and they fit my feet great, but the problem was to accommodate making them small enough to actually fit my feet with negative ease. The Colorwork cuff was too tight. It was literally, the Colorwork was so tight that I couldn't get it over my heel, and so they did not fit me. I knew this by the time I started my second one, but I just still needed the satisfaction of finishing the sock. I didn't want to rip them out and do it again, and so I ended up giving them to my best friend. So she has the little ghost Halloween socks, and they just barely get over her heel. So lesson learned, I need to think more about maybe incorporating like lace or cables or some sort of textured pattern into my socks so that I can be engaged in them, but also not get myself into trouble with color work if I'm having to modify my size actually down several sizes. And I guess I'm trying to show you how like loose this is. Like, do you see? That is not what I see other people's socks look like. So I'm not sure how to fix that. But the other thing I would say is I live in the South and I don't need more sweaters. So I need to fall in love with sock knitting. If you have been in a similar situation and you have suggestions, I would love to hear your suggestions, and please don't tell me to go down to a size 0, or if I have to, how do you work through that mentally? Okay, so that's my, I think this is the Colorwork cuff from November, and I really, really loved the motif, and I finished them incredibly quickly. The motif is just, her patterns are delightful, and I love this also in the colors. Like, there's a version with like all different colors for every row, for every little bit of the sort of Fair Isle pattern, but I also loved the 2-color version that she did. So I think I almost copied just what hers looked like, because this was so fun. I think the yarn is Coats & Co, and I think this is Linen Quill, which don't use on socks because of the linen content unless it's in the yoke or the cuff, the Colorwork portion. So the body of the sock is Coats & Co fingering weight, sock weight. Those are okay. I've been wearing them to sleep, and I do enjoy wearing them to sleep. They're too loose to wear with shoes like out in the world, so that's another reason why I have a love-hate relationship with socks. If I could ever knit them at an appropriate gauge where I felt like I could wear them out into the world, maybe I would knit more of them. But here we are. This year, Caitlin Hunter released a striped sweater. I think it's called the Winter Albina. It's a sort of heavier version of her summer version of a striped sweater that she released last year. And as soon as I saw it, I needed it. I'm pretty sure this was one of the things where I had some like maybe Christmas money, and she released it, I want to say early in the year, and I finished this so quickly. I was pretty monogamous, which is very unusual for me, finishing this Winter Albina sweater. And this is a top-down construction, which is different than the summer one, which I think is a bottom-up. And I loved that construction. So of course you start with the back, do some short rows, and then you move into the front, and then eventually join in the round. I knit this, it's probably also the size 4, and it has a good amount of ease, and I love this sweater. It's drop shoulder, and it has a split hem, a nice wide split hem. It is so comfortable. It fits so well. I love it out in public. I love it as cozy around the house. I finished it, of course, like right when, so if I bought the yarn and started it like right when it came out, I finished it sort of right when it got too warm to wear in the summer. But most of its wear was originally just around the house. And then once it got chillier this fall, we've had a nice actually kind of proper chilly November, December. I've worn it quite a bit. It has really good shaping here. I think the original version has a little bit more of a mock neck. I don't love that. It's not, quite frankly, not cold enough here to need the mock neck. So I just did a standard bind off here, and it doesn't even look like I did anything fancy. I might have done a tubular bind off. I think I did. I don't do tubular bind offs on the hem, but I do them sometimes on the cuff and the collar. So you can also tell that I had a crisis partway through, thinking that this sweater, which is inspired by the original colors in the sweater, but is a little more gold. Hers is like more of a tan. And I was having crisis imagining that like from here up, it kind of just looks like a Hufflepuff sweater or some kind of like, it was looking a little bit too school colors for me. And so I went to, this is knit in Brooklyn tweed shelter, which is carried or was carried when they produced it at my local yarn store. And so I went in and kind of panic returned a skein of this and got a skein of this to add to sort of make it like a colorwork or color block sort of situation. And it's showing up really nicely on camera. It's pretty, you can perhaps see why I was having a crisis about how rich this color is and sort of too school color for me, but I love it with the sort of stone color that I added. And I did do the little contrast cuff, which on the original one, she does it on the hem as well. I did not do that, but I really, really love this sweater. And I think the shelter has held up really, really well. It certainly is warm, but a striped worsted weight sweater is totally different than a colorwork. It doesn't have that double layer. So this is quite cozy and I wear it a good bit. Over Memorial Day weekend, I knit this hat, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. This is the Harlow flip hat. That's a worsted weight. And it's called the flip because you knit for a while. You're doing brioche stitch one way and then you flip so that the other color becomes the dominant color. And so that way the flip part matches the rest of the hat when you fold it inside out, so that way it looks like it does. And the reverse of this looks looks like this. And so this pattern, I knit this, I just missed the sort of deadline, which is a fairly arbitrary deadline. And I used a skein that I had in my deep stash of Rusted Rainbow of Spin Cycle Dream State, and a genuinely long languishing, this kind of coral yarn right here was a yarn that I had bought in Spain in 2019 from like a shop there that I just happened to wander past while we were exploring Madrid. And so it was like their shop, it was like their house yarn. Like you literally, they sold it just sort of by the weight, and you could, they'd sort of just literally weigh it and then charge you what it was. So I don't know, I was a different kind of knitter in 2019 and I loved the yarn, but could never really figure out what kind of project it went with. And so I think these look so, so good together. I just really feel like there's a hair, like these two yarns were made for each other, and I love the rainbow. And I actually do wear this hat quite a bit. I love a brimmed hat, especially considering that it's worsted weight and it's brioche worsted weight, but it's so stretchy. I probably did size down in this because, again, if I'm a loose knitter and it's brioche, but I just really, it was so fun. It was that thing where Dream State keeps it interesting because it's color changing. And then of course the brioche stitch is really, really fun to do. And so this was an incredibly satisfying project. My niece looks really cute in this hat and has mentioned several times that she would love to have it. So I might make a second one and decide then if I want to give her this original or if I make it in colors that she might like even more. So we'll see. But this was a very fun project and a very good like weekend project. Moving on to some items that I finished more into the summer of 2025 and honestly that I wear a little less. Yeah, so first up is the Bergman sweater. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter, again, Boyland Knitworks. Something about her aesthetic I really, really love. And this sweater, as soon as I saw this colorwork yoke, sort of like a digital, almost digital inspired or sort of graphic, I loved it and I knew I had to have it. And the yarn for this sweater is Rosa Pomar Mungo, I think, which is like a cotton wool blend. And so I ordered one skein too few of the main color. I can't remember how many skeins I ended up using, but like, let's say I ordered 3 balls of this and 2 of this or something like that. And I ended up needing a 4th skein of it. And of course, when I went back to actually finish this sweater, I had like the sort of, you know, that sort of nightmare experience where no US shops were even carrying it anymore. And so I had to, like, they were sold out of the natural color. And so I had to order it like from Portugal. And so because I was doing that, this is Portuguese yarn. Because I was doing that, I went ahead and ordered 2 skeins just to have some extra. So this yarn was actually lovely to knit with. If you've ever knit with a plant fiber, you will know that it is not as stretchy, as bouncy as a protein, as an animal fiber. And so because of that, it can actually really be rough on your hands, but there's the combination of this yarn is actually really lovely. And so it has definitely that feel of cotton, but a little bit of the bounciness of wool. I find that this sweater warmer than I expected it to be. And it's a little itchier than I expected it to be. So this was the experience where I was like excited about this yarn because I was excited to find a plant and wool, like a combo fiber that might actually work really well for my climate. And I think it's either DK or worsted weight. And I loved knitting the yoke. This was just a really satisfying project. And I even did the color work on the sleeves and at the hem, but then I never really wore it. And I also think it looks really cute on my mom. And she's a little bit smaller than me, so I think there's a little bit more ease and it just looks really lovely on her. And so I wore this to work for our holiday get together, and I got a lot of compliments on it. I think it is a beautiful sweater. I don't know why this color combination, I loved knitting it, and I don't necessarily know that it goes with a lot of stuff that I have, or with, I just don't know. Like I haven't been wearing this as much as I should, despite it being slightly cold here in the winter. I'm turning to other sweaters more. And so I have kind of mixed feelings about this sweater, and part of me wishes I had gone even bolder with the motif. Like if I had done like gray and white, and it would just like be even more poppy. But that is the Bergman sweater, and I do really like it. I don't know if it's the yarn or the colors or the size or what have you. I want to make a goal to either wear this more or gift it to my mom, who I think looks really pretty in it. The next thing that I made in 2025, I visited the Black Mountain Yarn Shop in March when we were visiting Asheville. And when I was there, I got to try on a sweater that I had considered making for quite a long time, and trying it on really sealed the deal for me and confirmed that I did want to make one myself. And that is the Traveler's Shell. This is also a pattern by Andrea Mowry, and it is in her Traveler series. I love an open cardigan, especially even like a short sleeve kind of, toss over and feel cozy, but not like full cardigan. And I had both of these yarns already in my stash. The yarn is Republica Unicornia, who is an Atlanta-based yarn dyer and wonderful human. And so this was her, like, I think new Grange, sort of grungy green, paired with some of her Suri. I can't remember if it's Suri or mohair, but the point is I had the fluffy yarn and I had the fingering weight yarn, and they both just had such good texture that I thought they would look really good together. And I had quite a bit of both. So I decided to make this. It is a open front, short sleeved cardigan. And I sure don't wear it much. Which is a shame because the traveler pattern is a commitment. The sort of pattern repeat with the rows of purling and the rows of knitting can be a little bit of a slog. It blocks out really beautifully, and I honestly should just wear it more, especially around the house. It's basically like a little nice house coat situation. Again, I don't know if this is just the color thing, like maybe the colors, it's wonderfully soft and the yarn was lovely to knit with. Maybe it just, there's something mentally about when I'm going into my closet, like what it goes with or what. But this is another one that I feel I need to wear more. So I enjoyed the process, obviously, and I think it's such a cute shape, and I like the texture. The Traveler series texture kind of blocks out really nicely, and so that's a joy. I think that's a wrap on everything that I made in 2025, or everything that I finished in 2025. I did end up finishing a couple more objects. 2 of them were gifts. So one was a Traveler cowl that I made out of my hand spun and for my mom. So that was a really fun project where I was learning how to spin in 2024 and literally like finishing a little mini skein on my tiny little mini nano spinning wheel, and then like adding it to the project. So it was genuinely like a journey of, okay, what is this yarn gonna look like? What is it gonna look like if I add a little bit of white mohair or white alpaca? So it was really fun to see how that came about, and it would literally be where I would knit till the end of my hand spun and have to stop and have to go spin some more yarn. So it was like a fun, like picking up this spinning, getting another little mini ball of yarn, going and working on the project, and then coming back, having to stop and then going, repeating the process. So that one took me almost a year. I think I gifted it to her for my birthday. That's really the correct time, I guess, to wish your mom a happy Mother's Day when she became a mom. So I gave it to her for Mother's Day, but at my birthday. And it looks great on her. I think, again, like I said, cowls are very lovely to style. I enjoy wearing a cowl. I think it's really stress-free, and the Traveler is a really fun texture for hand spun. So that was really cool. And she has that. The other item that I finished that I don't have is the little spooky ghost socks that I mentioned. I gave to my friend when they did not fit me. Oh, the last item that I finished this year that I just forgot to bring from downstairs because it lives in a different section in my closet is my Totally tank top, which is also a pattern by Jessie Maed Martinson. And I bought the yarn that it calls for. It's a yarn that she uses a lot. It's a cotton yarn, and I did not love knitting with it. And so this tank top, the shaping came together really quickly, and then it sat in a closet for 10 or 11 months before I could work up the nerve to knit in the round in, I think, size 2 needles with cotton yarn. And the tank top itself is very cute. I wore it a few times this summer, and I hope it gets more wear next summer, actually. I made it cropped. I think the color is really beautiful. It's their Jewel Weed. I can't remember the name of the yarn company, but I remember that color. It's very iconic and like photographs beautifully on Ravelry, and it looks great in person too. It's cotton yarn, so it doesn't have the memory in quite the same way. So I feel like I didn't wear it as much because then it would get, if it was getting too stretched out and I'd have to wash it again. I'm not really used to having to wash my knits quite so much. And in the summer, you're sweating. And so, yeah, wore it a few times, loved it. I don't know how many times I'll knit a tank top in the future just because of that kind of the wearability issue of it. I mean, it's cotton, so it's breathable for sure, but it's still a cotton handmade garment in the Georgia summer. We'll see. And it's such a small gauge for my loose knitting. you know, I have mixed thoughts about it. I love the finished object, and I love the yarn in the finished object. I didn't love the process of it. So probably won't make more tank tops in the foreseeable future, because if I make them in wool, then they're not super wearable in my climate, but alas. That is all the things that I finished knitting in 2025. Thanks for joining me today to chat about some things that I've made this year.